Hi, I'm David with EV World News. Talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm back today after being gone for a week with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Glad to see you
It's,
back. You got a
oh,
little
thank
more
you.
hair on top. You'll
Oh, yeah, it's
almost
growing
have as
back
much
out.
as I do here soon.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I only cut my hair in election years.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so that way it makes it easier to keep track of both the elections and my
Right,
haircut. You know,
right.
so I'll let it grow for the next 2 years again, and we'll go from one eccentric look to the other.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
because we're normally doing face on here, right? Don't
mhm.
normally see the sides of our head. He had a really nice pigtail back there at one time.
Yeah. Well, I also always wore the headset, and with
Right.
the headset, you really couldn't tell how long my hair was, so,
Let's see if
it
I
it
turn
kinda
sideways here.
yeah, 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 it kinda hid how long my hair actually was. Um, but anyways, it seems so weird to talk about the exciting electric vehicle news when we've got other news going on, like
Oh my
what's going on
goodness.
in the Middle
What
East, and
you leave for a week and the world falls over, man. What's the
I
deal?
know. Yeah. Um, but still, there is some exciting stuff going on in the
Oh yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start off with dadgummit. The Washington Post is trying to get me to subscribe. Um, Trying to pull up their article. Man, I hate that when these things do that. Let's start with the topic on how long do electric vehicle batteries actually last?
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
yeah, so this is what's kind of crazy because most people think that the EV batteries don't last any longer than your
Cell
12
phone.
volt battery.
Yeah, or 12 volt.
And that's certainly not the case, but it is funny how people get that mixed up. But now we've got a good, nobody knew what to expect when it first started. Um, but my cell phones, I don't know that I've ever really had a battery go out in a cell phone since the 90s.
Well,
They're
because
all,
you're always upgrading to the next Apple whatever, right?
well, you say that. I'm still on an iPhone 11.
Oh, you old man,
So,
you.
yeah, I mean, they're currently on a 17, but I do recall I used to switch out every 2 years. Yeah. Um,
Galaxy 20 shows you how up to date I am.
yeah, that's only what, 4 years ago?
Yeah,
Mine's,
yeah.
mine's,
But what
mine's
we're
like,
up to, what, 27 or something like that now?
oh, maybe it's 7 years. Okay, you're in the same boat then. But anyways, as batteries age, they certainly aren't quite where they were. But we're starting to get EV batteries that have been out since 2010 still on the road. And what's kind of been going on is after 10 years, 90% of 10-year-old car EVs on the road still have their original battery. And
Yeah.
that's pretty shocking to think about. Now, you have a Chevy Bolt, but you don't have one from one of the years where it had all the recalls,
No, no,
right?
no, no. I got
I mean,
2022. Yeah.
there was some years with the Chevy Bolt when it first came out. Didn't they have to recall every single one and
I had to
replace the battery?
recall every single one because their original supplier had a manufacturing defect in the
Mhm.
battery. And of course, you didn't know if it was all of them or just, a half dozen. You had to recall them all. But they finally got it resolved. And I feel comfortable when I plug my car in at night that I won't hear the smoke alarm going off at 2 a.m. in the morning. So,
Yeah. So, in 2010, people predicted that EV batteries would only last for 7 years,
yeah. Well,
and
we didn't
uh,
know.
yeah, they didn't know. But now it turns out of EVs that are 10 plus years old, 90% still on that first battery. EVs with 150,000 miles retain at least 83% of their original range. Now, for warranties, they consider it when it hits 70% that it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
So, so 83% still pretty good after 150,000 miles. 3-year-old EVs averaging 95 plus percent battery health at auctions. So that's pretty damn strong.
Can you see it?
Well, I see a little bit, but not much. It's
Okay.
not bright enough
It's not
on
bright.
the screen.
Come on, get
Tell
up.
us what we're looking at, Bill.
Let's see if we can get it up there. No, I don't want.
No,
Anyway, Ford Mustang Mach-E, dadgum phone. Ford Mustang Mach-E just turned 316,000 miles and has only an 8% drop in its energy storage capacity. 316,000 miles.
man. It only had how big of a drop? 8%?
8%.
And 300 something thousand miles.
316,000 miles. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, that is a lot of damn miles.
Well,
Wow.
let's see. That's what, to the moon at least one way and part of the way back.
I'm curious what his usage was of that vehicle. If he was
Well,
an
if
Uber
it's a
driver
night,
or-
it's how old? I didn't notice how old it was. What model? What year?
well, the Mach-E hasn't been out that long, has it?
No, that's what I'm saying. So they were obviously doing a lot of driving.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I've seen where some Teslas that have been used for Uber have put 100,000 miles a year on them because they've been driven 2,000 miles a week. And, they've had pretty good use, but that's not the ideal use of the batteries because it's constantly being charged to full and then being ran down.
Yeah.
And normally you try not to charge above 80%, but they're having to charge to 100% every day. So you'd think those would have more problems. One of the things is when they first were guessing they were only going to last 7 years, the lab tests were far harsher than real world driving because they were doing constant full discharge without regenerative braking.
Right.
Temperature management and software systems have worked way better than expected. So, yeah, I thought that was
they didn't
interesting.
they didn't really reflect average daily driving. They were going for the extreme, and they found out that drivers don't quite do the extreme all the time. Generally, drive pretty moderately, and occasionally accelerate just to show off. I mean, that's what I do.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. All right. So let's talk about Tesla full self-driving crash data. So Tesla has this March 9th deadline, which is next week, to supply critical FSD crash data to the NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety.
No, it's traffic. Yeah, it's Traffic Safety Administration.
Traffic Safety Administration. Okay. It has to deliver full self-driving crash data by March 9th. It's about 8,300 records need review covering traffic violations and incidents. Robotaxi reality check, 14 incidents since June of 25 launch in Austin, averaging 1 collision per 57,000 miles. Most were at very low or zero speed collisions.
Yeah. Parked in the wrong place.
Yeah, there was only ever property damage. There wasn't any people injured.
Right.
In any of these. Now, if you look at it from a different perspective, rather than miles, you did it per trip. It was only 1 collision per 13,289 trips, rather than miles. Supervised FSD still shows a major crash every 5.3 million miles versus an average driver's 660,000 miles. Right. So it's 9x. So you're 9 times more likely without FSD getting in an accident than you are with FSD.
So the data is being supplied by independent evaluation?
I'm going to assume it's Tesla turning over their records. So, I don't know, exactly what that.
Knowing what I've heard, what I've heard in the past about suggestions of how they manipulate their data, I am. I hope they're right. That'd be great. Take fewer, get fewer cars, get more cars off the road, and provide people with safer transportation. I'm just a little skeptical of some of the stuff I'm hearing from Tesla anymore.
Let me see. What's interesting, Waymo, which is owned by Google or Alphabet,
Right.
assumed an average trip length of only 4.3 miles. Those are pretty short trips.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Tesla had 7 collisions over 250,000 miles. It took 550,000 miles to reach the next 7 collisions. So they went from 7 and 250 to 7 and 550.
No, so they're improving. That's great.
They're improving it. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think anybody would be better off with with full self-driving, at least as an option. I mean, you're supposed to sit there and be watching it, right? All the same, but it's just like cruise control. It's funny now. I had a rental car last week in Florida that didn't have the cruise control that automatically slows down, when it's pulling up on a vehicle.
Right.
And I was like, and it was a Buick. I was like, really? A Buick didn't have that feature? That was one of the brands I would have assumed would have had, that kind of technology. All right. So here's something interesting for you. And this is from the New York Times. Ford and GM, U.S. automakers, face an unprecedented China EV crisis. Industry veterans say they can't remember a time with more uncertainty, whipsawed by tariffs, Chinese competition, flat sales, and declining profits. There's a risk of irrelevance. U.S. automakers could soon become niche manufacturers of pickups and SUVs that only Americans buy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's starting to look like, because we're seeing the rest of the world go electric in the United States.
Yeah.
Just keeping on. Trump's rollback of clean air regulations gives short-term relief for profitable gas vehicles, but long-term competitiveness is in jeopardy as China dominates EV innovation.
Yep.
Now, one thing, this isn't something we've discussed on the show, but since Trump became president again, gas prices have gone down. And I think the sting that people feel from high gas prices pushes more people to consider an EV. And when the price starts dropping down around $2.50 a gallon, people aren't so worried about what gas costs anymore.
All right. And they buy a great big honk and
they put it to the back. But now with what's going on in Iran, even though we don't import gas from that part of the world, or very little gas from the Middle East, it's going to jack up prices probably $1 a gallon for a while.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah.
I'd imagine we start seeing $4 a gallon. I mean, now if you're in California, you're probably going to, I don't know what it's going to cost. It's probably going to cost $7 a gallon out there. But even in our part of in the middle of the United States, we're probably going to see something close to $4 gas.
Well, yeah, we're just a straight pipeline from the refineries and the oil fields and things down in Texas and Louisiana and the Gulf. So I mean, it's not like wet East Coast, you have to pump it, from Louisiana all the way up to New York, or in California's case, you have to pump it all the way from the same spot across to Southern California. Although I guess some still comes from the Alaskan oil fields, but you don't hear much about those anymore.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just saying that as gas prices go up, and it starts getting closer to $4, I bet we see a spike in EV sales again.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is they found that in looking at used EV prices, the price of used Teslas has increased 4%, where the cost of other brands of EVs has actually on the used market has declined.
Oh, I mean, if you're looking, here's one of the things. Brands like Audi, Mercedes, Jaguar, brands like that aren't known to be good to keep past 50,000 miles because it becomes so expensive to repair.
Right.
With an EV, you don't have as many things to repair, right? And so I've been looking, the Jaguar, is it the I-Type? Is that what I think it's called, the I-Type?
Yeah, the I-Pace. Yeah, right.
Yeah, iPace, which is what the Waymos are.
Waymo
Um,
uses, right.
you can pick those up for $20,000 to $25,000 now used with not high mileage. I'm talking anywhere from 25 to 40,000 miles that are
Right.
4 or 5 years old, and so they're fairly low mileage. The Audi e-tron, there you can pick those up for less than $25,000 that are a few 3 or 4 years old. And I'm just saying, I mean, you're not going to have to deal with. I mean, they're still going to be more expensive for maintenance by far than a Tesla, and they're not going to have all the cool tech features that
Yeah.
Teslas have, but they're going to have more luxury features than Teslas have.
Yeah,
So you're going to.
let me share something that I've been noticing here in my neighborhood, okay, down here in southwestern Omaha, basically, is that I go out for a walk, try to every day. It's a 1.5 mile course. And in that 1.5 mile course, I only touch a major road on 2 sides of that. And every time now I go out, I see at least 2 Teslas, sometimes 3 Teslas, and on the occasion a Rivian or 2 in a 1.5 miles. So that's telling me that they're becoming more acceptable and commonplace here in the red heartland of America, which is encouraging. I love it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm watching some of our stock tickers. Some of them are just interesting to see because I'd imagine that with what's going on in the Middle East, you'd think it would be like hammering the stock market.
Yeah,
and some of these
Rivian's
stocks,
up.
yeah, but it's at $15. I mean, we were at $22.
We were at
a few.
22, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Tesla's at 391. We were at 470. I mean, that's a 20% rollback.
Yeah.
Rivian's up, 6 cents. I mean, that's not really that.
No,
that
it's not gigantic, but yeah.
No.
Everybody else looks like everybody else is in the red today.
Yeah, everybody else is in the red. I've just been looking at some of these. It's like, wow, some of these changes. But let's see. So X and XAI are repaying $17.5 billion in debt. They're paying off debts early. Morgan Stanley is managing a massive debt payoff for Twitter and XAI. Early repayment includes a premium of $1.17 on the dollar.
Where's that money coming from, by the way? Where's it coming from?
What's that? Where's
it coming from? Ad revenue on X or investors?
I'm not sure. It doesn't really specify where the revenues came from. SpaceX acquired XAI in February at a $250 billion valuation. XAI had been previously acquired in 2000. XAI had previously acquired X in 2025, inheriting $12 billion in debt. So they're retiring all of this debt, which who knows? Maybe they raised some cash and some other things. Yeah. XAI raised $20 billion in Series E funding in January, but source of repayment capital remains undisclosed. So they're not disclosing where the money came from.
That I find a little shady.
Yeah, maybe they're laundering drug money. Who knows?
Well, anymore, it's hard to tell. Put it in crypto, and God only knows.
Is it ketamine? Is it ketamine they think he's on?
Oh yeah.
I don't know what that is. It sounds cool. I don't know.
I ain't gonna try it.
No, it's not on my bucket list.
I might, under certain circumstances, I might give magic mushrooms a try sometime. I haven't yet, but I hear positive things about it when it's done in a controlled environment, with supervision and things. So
yes. So we like, I think, to a certain degree, the fact that Tesla does their direct sales. It's been very interesting to watch.
Yep.
If they had been in the dealer model, I don't think Tesla would have ever really done that well.
No,
I just don't think it would have worked out. But now Washington State has had a direct sales breakthrough for Rivian and Lucid. Now, this is where it's good to have politicians in your pocket, okay? Because this is a funny story here. So listen to this. So Washington State Senate Bill 6354 allows Rivian and Lucid to sell direct to consumer in Washington, and they joined Tesla in this with support from auto dealers who previously opposed this. I'm not sure how they swung that. Strategic move by Rivian.
I'll explain in a minute.
Okay. Well, company pledged $20 million plus for the November 26 ballot initiative if legislation failed. Dealers chose to negotiate rather than face an expensive ballot battle. Strict eligibility. Now, this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
Only U.S. companies exclusively producing battery electric vehicles with 300 plus cars registered in Washington and no franchise agreements qualify.
Right.
It blocks Chinese EVs and legacy automakers from using the loophole. Now, I've seen some other laws. Years ago, I saw something that was written exclusively for Microsoft's benefit in the trademark or copyright law and other stuff. This one, it's like somebody at Rivian and Lucid must have needed a favor, or a politician needed a favor from them. Yeah. Or really just happened to like their Rivian or Lucid vehicle. But it just kind of crazy because it's like only U.S. companies exclusively making battery electric vehicles with 300 plus cars and no
previous dealership agreements. Right. And the other part of this is that they have set aside a fund. So when you buy that electric vehicle, you have to pay an additional amount of money, and that money is then set aside to provide rebates to low-income families who want to trade up and get an electric vehicle, which isn't a bad deal. Now, who's going to be selling those used electric vehicles?
Well, one of the things I understand in the car market is that a car manufacturer has to provide, even if they go out of business, there has to be at least 10 years worth of spare parts
Yep.
for those cars. Yep. So I'm sure there had to be something done with that because they're not technically a dealer in those states. I don't know what would go on with that, but you'd have to figure that some of that is probably meshed in there, but that wasn't part of the news we got. So I'm just saying I find this rather fascinating, and at the same time, Lucid's down 6 cents and Rivian's up 6 cents.
Yeah. So what I did is I did a little research this morning with the assistance of, I think I used Chat GPT to find out what states have implemented this dealer, or direct to consumer sales, and which states haven't. So if you look down in the editor's exclusive section on the website, you'll get a list of all of the states that have various levels of legislation, either pro, con, or evolving. Interested in knowing if your state is one of those states that allow it or doesn't allow it. Check out on the evworld.com website, scroll down to the editor's exclusive section.
All right. Now, at the same time, we talked about Robotaxi and full self-driving a little while ago. California deployment of Robotaxi has stalled despite Musk's claims. Musk is misleading people, claiming Tesla is waiting for regulators, but the DMV records show Tesla hasn't logged autonomous test miles in California for 6 years. But that's kind of bizarre. It's regulators waiting for Tesla to start the process. Companies must progress through multiple permits, starting with test driving. Tesla's $1.5 trillion market cap heavily banks on the Robotaxi promise, but Waymo is years ahead with operations in 6 cities.
Yep.
All right.
Little smoke and mirrors, courtesy of Musk.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. Let's talk about BYD's ultra superchargers. Oh my God. How much power can
I created that name. I couldn't come up with another name. So I said, well, we'll just I mean, 2 kilometers per second
Yeah,
charge rate?
I don't think it's quite that. So we're talking a 1.36 gigawatt charger.
Yeah.
Okay. This is crazy. We're talking about needing nuclear power to power the charging stations.
One of
Now,
the charging stations has to have its own small nuclear reactor.
My friend that manufactures EV chargers in China, he has a charging station that comes with like a 300 or 400 kilowatt hour battery. Okay. That's in there. So when somebody comes and they need energy, you've got the energy coming through the power lines, plus you've got additional power coming from the battery.
Right.
And then when there's no car charging, the power's still pulling into the battery, filling the battery up.
Filling the battery back up, yeah.
Yeah. So part of this, they are figuring out how, and it doesn't really get into this so much, but it does, the article does mention that it includes grid storage features. But the idea is that you have this big battery, and then during like a peak time of the day, especially, you'd also have, that not needing to pull that excess power from the grid at a critical time because you have this big battery. But it allows you to dump more power into the car than maybe the transmission lines could provide. So maybe half the power is coming from the transmission lines, half of it's coming from the battery.
Right.
Yeah. But still, that's a lot of power to go into a transmission line. Okay. Anyways, but BYD is deploying these chargers across China, and they're delivering 400 kilometers or 248 miles of range in 5 minutes. I mean, that's 50 miles per minute of charging. That's almost adding, 0.8 of a mile or better per second.
Yep. Or as they say in the, they advertise in the article, it's 2 kilometers per second. So.
Yeah. And maybe that's when the battery's at 10%.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right.
It's really
it'll
easy.
go up and then it'll start to level off.
Yeah. But this is far beyond Tesla's supercharger capabilities. It's a serious competitive threat to Tesla's charging network advantage. Now, Tesla could implement the same feature. I mean, it's not.
Well, in fact, they are because they're putting out these superchargers for their semi fleet in about, what was it? I think there's a map shows most of them are in West Coast, California, Florida, and the Northeast. So they're planning on putting supercharging capable chargers for the semis.
Right. Well, I'm just saying when you mix the battery in the charger with the power coming through the grid,
right,
to power it, you can significantly ramp up the amount of juice you're putting into the car.
Yeah.
Anyways,
speaking of rapid charging, did you see what NIO did over the Lunar New Year?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, so in China, the equivalent of I guess, what's the most traveled day in the U.S.? July 4th or Labor Day or
most traveled day? I would think would be the day before Thanksgiving.
Probably Thanksgiving. So Lunar New Year is the equivalent of that in China. That's when everybody jumps in their cars, hops on the train, jumps in the plane, and goes out back to see family.
Mm-hmm.
And NIO has built a network of, I think there are around 3,000 or so, 3,500 or so of these battery exchange facilities. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this in the past. They set a record on February 22nd, just a week or so ago, of doing let's see, what is the exact number is 74,000 plus battery exchanges in one day. 174,000.3, I think, battery changes in a day.
That'd be 25. That'd be, if there was even across the board, that'd be 25 a day at every one of their stations across China.
And some of them were, I think one of them I was reading in 24 hours, it did something like 943 exchanges in that 24-hour
Wow.
period.
And the thing is, it had to charge all those batteries.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, you figure that's almost 40 of those batteries an hour. So one every minute and a half.
Yeah. So, of course, where's the power coming from? Well, obviously, there's coal, but increasingly the Chinese are replacing their energy dependence on coal, or maybe a better way to say is supplementing or replacing or making more of it from renewables than from coal, from wind. But I just read a really interesting one that over in the sort of Tibetan area, the part of China in the southwest part of China, they are actually going to build a system where they build a reservoir quite literally at the top of the mountain, I guess, take advantage of the Himalayan snows, and then drill a tunnel. And I forget how long it is, but it's a big, long ass tunnel. And then put turbines at the end of the tunnel to generate power from that. So they're using in this case, they're using water and I guess all hydroelectric dams are water and gravity fed, right? You're just taking the weight of the water and the gravity pushing on it to generate electric power. And they're going to be doing that. And I forget the exact distance this thing is, but a huge tunnel through the mountains to generate power down at the lower end where it goes into the Brahmaputra or whatever, ultimately in the ocean.
2 Wednesdays ago, when David Kulik was on with Mike and I, he was talking about one of his things is seeing a lot of these mining locations that are, kilometers down, filling them with water and has the water descends into there, spins the turbine, then you use solar to pump it back out or bring it back out and drop it back down again.
Back and duck down. Yep.
Yeah. And, using those as your battery storage for your solar. The only thing is, I don't know how efficient that is. I see.
Yeah. This one's quite natural. You got water in a frozen form at a higher level. It melts, drops down.
Yeah, I'm just saying you've got to create all of this solar to pump all the water up into the reservoir.
Back up, yeah.
So that at night, when you need that power, you can let all the water out of it and go through and turn the pumps or whatever, produce the energy through the generator. All right. Let's see.
Can I mention the Japanese nodules?
Yeah. What's going on there?
Okay, so Japan discovered, they have these deep rifts of ocean offshore of Japan, and they have found on the bottom of the ocean floor in a particular region these nodules, and they look like clumps of clay or whatever, right? Turns out that they're rich in rare earth minerals, and there's millions, billions of these nodules. Looks like most of them are about yay big, right? About a handful of these things. So the thought is, well, let's start mining those nodules, and then we don't have to be dependent on the Chinese for the rare earth minerals that we need for our batteries and our phones and all the other things. So,
let's see here. Well, let's talk about the conservative shift on solar power. So I hadn't really seen this. I saw that we have an article on the EV World site. Apparently, some prominent MAGA voices, including Stephen Miller's wife, now publicly backing solar after years of White House criticism. I'm actually really shocked at how much this administration has crapped on solar and wind. Like I always say, they're just tools. They're just tools to provide people with cheaper energy. It's just, like we talk about the using water as a battery and all these
Right.
things, it's tough to ever consistently have enough, because solar is great in the summertime when the sun's out all day, but in the wintertime when the sun's not out much, you can't charge up those batteries. You just don't have enough. So but when it's available and it's cheap, use as much as you can, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't see the argument against it there, other than, it just doesn't provide power all the time when you need it.
And it doesn't provide the kind of revenue income stream that a typical supporter, contributor to your election campaign would normally enjoy. So,
right. Well, I suspect some of this comes from the beating the Republicans took in Virginia in their weird, Virginia House of Delegates has their election every single year. And it was last year was an energy election. And, the Republicans crapping on solar probably cost them 10 seats out of 100.
Yeah.
And that was a big switch.
Such a dumb position to take. I mean, it's, we all use electricity. It's the same dang thing. It's not red or blue or whatever. It's just electricity. So why in the world do you want to pick on it when the benefit is it's A, cheaper, B, it's cleaner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, anyway. I promote nuclear energy all the time, but I'm not one of these people who thinks it's the thing to replace everything else. I look at it as a tool for really specific situations, like where you can put it right at the place that needs the energy, almost like a giant battery, as opposed to, supplying energy for everyone.
You're just moving electrons in a different way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Every type of energy production has some benefit, and it's just a matter of whether it works. There's some places that geothermal works well, and there's other places
Iceland, basically, the entire nation runs on geothermal and hydroelectric power. The only areas where they don't is when they provide the fuel for their fishing boats.
Well, and that makes sense, I suppose. Let's see. The strategic shift is driven by surging electricity demand from AI infrastructure and the desire to reduce Chinese solar dominance. Now, I'm wondering how this plays out. Reframing the narrative, conservatives now frame solar as vital for affordability, energy independence, and competing with China, especially for AI data center demand. Now, what I don't see, and I have seen a little bit of panel manufacturing in the United States. There should be incentives to manufacture panels in the U.S. And this is very much like when COVID hit. So when COVID hit, we had all these shortages of PPE, protective gear for medical people, because everything was made in China, and you couldn't get it out of China because
they needed it in China. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what had happened was it got so expensive to make everything in the United States that all the manufacturers shut down and everything went overseas. And there were some people that during the crisis started manufacturing product here, but I don't think they ever got protected. I'm not sure any of those people ever really survived. And that's wrong. If having medical supplies is something critical for the United States, and the same thing here with solar, the United States needs to be incentivizing it. It's like the same thing with all of the battery production and all that. You don't want batteries from China, incentivize
make them here,
manufacture them here, and
or buy your rare earth nodules from an ally. In this case, strange to say, an ally, in Japan. Or maybe we just should start looking for them offshore of the United States to see if we can find similar deposits.
Well, you never know. But I find this kind of fascinating that this came up about about the solar thing, and fortunately, I really can't. Oh. Now let's talk about this Donut Labs thing. Can you explain what's going on with this battery
Okay,
technology?
so Donut Labs is a Finnish company, although their headquarters is in England. But anyway, they have developed what they say is a solid state battery, and it really has some remarkable properties. I mean, potentially twice or relatively high energy density compared to normal lithium. And so they have, because lots of claims are made about battery chemistry, but the proof obviously is in the pudding, is in the testing of it. And so they came up about 2 weeks ago with their first test that showed its extraordinary capabilities beyond typical lithium cells. And then they just came up with released a second test, which sort of confirmed. In the second test, they basically heated it to the temperature of boiling water, hundreds of degrees centigrade, 212 Fahrenheit, to see how it would do. And it did some, it just is outperforming anything that we know of at the moment. So it certainly looks promising, although there are still, skeptics to how, whether or not these are real. And so it's an interesting technology. Apparently could significantly elevate the capabilities of EVs. Once it gets into the first company using it is the company making an electric motorcycle using that battery. So it's interesting. I not an electrical engineer, not a battery chemist. Most of that just goes over my head. But it looks like it's a really promising start. It just still has a long way to go, I think, in convincing people that it is for real. And so that's what's happening in that area.
Nice. What we had this one article: e-bikes dumped in the Potomac River near Kennedy Center.
And I read that and I thought, oh God, we're becoming like the Dutch, because they periodically drain the canals or dredge the canals in Amsterdam, and they typically pull out dozens, if not hundreds, of these bike share bikes. And I think they've had a similar problem in Paris, I believe, where they did the same thing. People were dumping bikes in the Seine River. So, okay, well, here we are,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, people are just dumb. I don't know what to say about some of these things. I mean, here's a picture here. And so here's a scooter. Here's a scooter here. You see the handlebars and that. There's another
shopping cart.
There. There's an electric bike right here.
Right.
I mean, it looks like part of a shopping cart right here. I mean,
next to the Kennedy Center. I'm going to call it by its old name, the Kennedy Center.
What's the new name, Bill?
I'm not going to go there.
I don't actually know what the new name is.
Oh, well, you should look that up. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
They put the name of it on a guy who loves to put his name over everything.
Oh, they're going to change it to the Trump Center now?
Yeah, well, they've sort of did a halfway on that.
Oh, okay.
They haven't removed the Kennedy name yet, but they're closing the Kennedy Center down for a year, and supposedly they're going to renovate it, and it'll no longer be a fine arts center. It will be a center for holding, boxing and whatever you call that thing where guys get in a cage and beat each other up.
MMA, UFC.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, in the Kennedy Center. Yeah, right.
That's one of the few things. It's funny. I'm a pretty competitive tennis player. I do watch videos about tennis more than I do about UFC, but I used to be real into doing MMA, and I did Muay Thai kickboxing for years and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I still will watch videos on new techniques in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to watch, but yeah, that's great. Yeah. that some of these galas and stuff like that, I could do without that, but I could watch UFC. So, but each their own, right? I find that a lot more exciting than, the fine arts.
but
I can't appreciate things of beauty,
yeah, unfortunately,
but I can appreciate two people beating each other up. Yeah.
Well, that's the difference between us. Yeah, I have no interest in that. I think it's a dumb use of your talent and capabilities, right? I mean, sports, I love athletics. In fact, I've gone, I watched what was the name of that thing? It was a Netflix series about fictional, obviously, where they swap ballet companies between Paris and New York. And I started, wow, this ballet stuff is really, athletically taxing. I don't know how these people do it. So I've gained a greater appreciation for dance and ballet and things like that. To me, that is more uplifting than guys giving each other bloody noses and brain damage. But
no, I'm with you. I get it. Like I said, each their own. All right. Well, folks, thanks for watching. We had great viewership today. And I will be back with engineer Mike Herzog tomorrow. We'll talk about some Tesla Optimus and some other things tomorrow. Anyways, otherwise, folks, thanks for watching and have a great day.